Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and Genshin Impact's getting hit with the old FTC lawsuit. Now, I've made several videos on my channel, since the beginning, right? Since like the, hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, welcome back to the Haunted Gaming days. I've talked about loot boxes in video games, especially when game companies do things that are really deceptive, especially when children are involved. And I have always looked at loot boxes, all of these like surprise mechanics, as EA would call it, as straight up gambling, okay? I think it can be pretty dangerous. But for anybody that doesn't know, Genshin Impact's game developer is apparently banned from selling loot boxes to teens under 16 without parental consent. Wow. Seems like that should be the case for every game. But of course, then I read, pay a $20 million fine. Now you might be like, whoa, that's a lot of money, Muda. Let me remind you, Genshin Impact is on track to hit $10 billion globally in 2025, okay? So that's kind of like, going up to, that's like going up to like just imagine for a second, okay? You're speeding down on the highway, right? You're 200 kilometers an hour in your car. A cop pulls you over and says, whoa, pal, you can't be speeding like that or else I'm going to have to write you up this ticket. The ticket's like $35. Now, is that a good... Now, that is kind of the rough equivalent I'm doing over here, okay? For a game that's making $10 billion annually, getting hit with this dastardly lawsuit and paying a $20 million fine is literally added in to like the bottom rung of their accounting for like legal stuff, okay? This is like this is like smaller than an accounting error for the company involved with Genshin Impact. But it's important for me to talk about because for once, the government has actually jumped in and they're talking about loot boxes marketed to children. Because let's be honest, any game with loot box mechanics is effectively like walking into like a slot machine. I remember a while back watching like an NBA, like footage of an NBA game back in the PS4, and literally it looked like an actual casino, like a fucking straight up Las Vegas casino you walk into. And I was like, where's the actual basketball game in amongst all of the slot machines, the gambling parlors, so on and so forth? It's actual insanity. So to give you an idea, Genshin Impact has agreed to pay $20 million and block children under 16 for making in-game purchases without, of course, a parental consent involved, where, again, the FTC alleges that they actually violated the children's privacy law. So things like COPA, where, again, when you're under the age of 13, the government takes your actual privacy pretty seriously. So there's an actual lawsuit, and you can read it as well, too. I've read this. And in this, the actual case involved Genshin Impact being, again, a game very popular amongst children and teenagers. I talked about it on my channel. Some children and teenagers have spent hundreds or thousands of dollars to obtain select chance-based prizes in the game to their parents' surprise. So literally, kids would download this game on their phone, on their PlayStations, PCs, whatever, play it, spend some money, and then the parents would look at the bill at the end of the month and be like, holy shit! What are you playing there, son? Are you actually playing the slots or are you playing your little cute anime game? And to give Genshin Impact a lot of credit here, I think Genshin Impact, from what I've played, does more to actually detail how bad the odds can be in your favor, as well as providing the pity system, compared to like American like loot box filled shooters and like sports games. I think Genshin does a far better job relaying it, okay? I think fucking casinos in Las Vegas, I think casinos in the back room of an Italian mob front do a better job detailing your actual chances of success than, again, the average FIFA, the average NBA game, the average, like, American shooter loot box extravaganza. But so what they kind of talk about with Genshin Impact is it pretty much is a game that appeals to children. One of the big assessments over here was the COPA, so Children Online Privacy Protection Act. And what they basically alleged over here was that Genshin Impact was apparently collecting information on children without parents' consent, which is a very big no-no. So to play Genshin Impact using a personal computer or mobile device, you gotta create a Hoyoverse account. Players are required to provide an email address to create the account, and once the player's account has been created, Hoyoverse then solicits players to enter a mobile phone number and to create a username. Hoyoverse assigns each account a unique user ID, which functions as online contact information. Players can use these IDs to exchange friends requests and send or receive chat messages, so something that you would expect to be anything related to any kind of an online game. Okay, you do this for pretty much any game. Call of Duty, you do this. Grand Theft Auto. Genshin Impact is not unique in this. Hoyoverse purports to require players to acknowledge they have read and agreed to terms of services and a privacy policy when creating the account. Unlike many popular online games, Genshin Impact does not screen players' ages by the way of an age gate or require them to enter a birth year. And I'm kind of questioning this a little bit too. To be fair, I'm not the biggest expert to ask. When I made my account for Genshin Impact, I believe I did it through my PlayStation ID and then later on my Apple ID. And I think I made a Hoyoverse account like well after the fact, probably when Honkai Star Rail came out. And usually at that point, you're just like linking accounts. So I believe they understood the age of me through my Apple account, through my PlayStation account. But yeah, if this is entirely true, you should be age gating. And if you are collecting information from children underneath the age of 13, that is a severe no-no in the United States. And it should be a no-no anywhere in the world. So they go over like how Genshin Impact is appealing to like children. So they show like Paimon, the actual mascot. Like clearly this is, the art style is intended towards children, not so much people my age, even though people my age definitely do play video games like this. And they are some of the worst degenerate gamblers when it comes to gacha games. But you can just go to the App Store according to their own like case against Genshin Impact, and you can see that yes, they are appealing to the ages of 12 plus. So when you have anybody intermixed between under 18 and even in this case 12 directly, then you are collecting information from children that probably shouldn't have their information collected from or should have actual parental controls or parental like requirements to make those accounts. So then they start showing more ads like, these are the kind of ads you see about Genshin Impact. And I can probably assume this is taken off of like YouTube where they're using like these child looking like heroes. So yeah, there's no cause for saying, oh, this is really an M-rated game or we're really appealing to people in their, adult years. No, this definitely is a game intended towards children, right? They even dug up videos from like YouTubers. Again, like this one account, It's Funny, playing hide and seek in Genshin Impact. And again, they literally were like, Genshin Impact is directed to children, right? Hoyoverse has encouraged these influencers to engage in child-oriented activities within Genshin Impact, such as hide and seek. Now, to be honest with you, imagine if the FTC decided to jump down and say, what about games like, they even mentioned it, Minecraft and Roblox. But I mean, I'm looking at this and I think, damn, what about like Call of Duty with shit like prop hunt, hide and seek? What about that? I mean, I guess Call of Duty is clearly a game for adults because it does focus on adult themes. It does have violence all the way thrown about it. And it's not cartoony like this. But yeah, when I see that, it just makes me kind of laugh because, this lawsuit was drafted up by people who clearly do not just play video games. And this was something they saw a screenshot of and they were like, oh yeah, hide and seek in a video game? Get the fuck out of here. So in many cases, Hoyoverse has become aware that HoYoLab users are children, right? So HoYoLab is this one thing within Genshin they have. Some users have stated or indicated in communications reviewed by Hoyoverse that they were under 13 years. So for example, in social media postings on HoYoLab or in posted photographs, videos, or audio files containing a child's image or voice from which it was apparent that the user was a child. Again, I almost wonder, like, who was doing compliance over at Genshin for this to even be a case that the FTC could use against Genshin, right? Like, this is insane since it apparently seems to have happened. So then we get into the aspect of loot boxes, okay? So Hoyoverse requires consumers to engage in a complicated and confusing series of in-game transactions to open loot boxes involving multiple types of in-game virtual currency with different exchange rates. So before we go into it, I kind of want to talk about requiring a consumer. Like if you're playing a game free to play, like a gacha game, you're never really required to engage in the loot box stuff. Gacha games, there was one gacha game that I played on my phone, which is not Genshin Impact, but I think it was I believe it's just Shin Megami Tensei. Like it was a free to play game on my phone, which could be considered a gacha because they're usually like, pulling for characters like in a slot machine mechanic. But is it a requirement? I believe if not all of Genshin Impact content, and I guess this goes for Hoyoverse. Again, I'm not an active player of these games, but from what I have played, and it is a consistent amount, you can do most of the content in these games without actually jumping down, paying for a lot of these loot boxes or these character pulls. That being said, though, you are highly incentivized to go after those, crazy 5, 10-star characters. So again, when you go into the multiple different exchange rates, this is when they talk about things like dark patterns. So like a typical like free-to-play game, like if you're playing Grand Theft Auto Online, you can go online and purchase a shark card for like, somewhere between $4.99 all the way up to like $100. And they all come with their varying amounts of GTA Online currency. That currency is then, used to purchase in-game cars, in-game like houses, so on and so forth. And it's pretty apparent. But in Genshin Impact's case, what the government alleges is wild. So consumers must exchange a different virtual currency called Primogems to acquire Wish tokens at an exchange rate of 160 Primogems for one Wish token. That I know very well. Players acquire Wish tokens in this way through a virtual storefront called Paimon's Bargains, named for the childlike Paimon. Consumers can gradually accumulate Primogems through gameplay or by completing certain specified objectives inside or outside the game, such as logging into play or watching influencers associated with Hoyoverse. Hoyoverse provides Genshin Impact players with limited amounts of free tokens and Primogem exchangeable for Wish tokens. This introduces players to the experience of opening loot boxes in the game and provides an incentive to continue to play the game regularly. However, players can easily spend all of their free tokens and Primogems they have accumulated over the course of many hours without successfully acquiring a single 5-star prize. So while there are pity systems, remember, Genshin, the reason they're making 10 billion or on track to make 10 billion in 2025, or the company, is because these games highly incentivize you to actually put in your money. So yes, you do get access to the free gambling stuff, but like any free-to-play game, when they give you free pulls, it's like your local neighborhood crack addict giving you just a little taste, okay? Like, you have a little bit of a high, you're like, oh, I'm enjoying it. Ooh, I got a 4-star, but can I get that 5-star? And then, of course, when he stops giving you the crack, you then are like, all right, government just sent me a check. Can you, can you cash this all in, please? And then, of course, you throw in more money, more money, more money, more money, and then more money, and it becomes a pretty scary situation. Some people can go way overboard trying to get these 5-star prizes. And it's not just Genshin, it's other, again, it's again, multiple different free-to-play games with like, cash shops, microtransaction shops, loot boxes, and it's not even just free-to-play game. Tons of paid games nowadays have loot boxes themselves. Loot boxes are just like an inherent part of the gaming industry, and as much as I hate them, unfortunately people spend big bucks, and that's why they're around. So what they've said was to reliably acquire 5-star prizes, you gotta spend real money, obviously, often in large sums to open loot boxes. You cannot purchase 5-star prizes with real money directly. Instead, they must buy a virtual currency, Genesis crystals, and can only be acquired by spending real money. Hoyoverse then prompts the players to exchange Genesis crystals for Primogems, and Primogems for Wish tokens, and finally to spend the Wish tokens to open more loot boxes. So the thing is, what they're alleging is it's a dark pattern. You spend money, and then you're converting it and converting it and converting it. So it kind of obfuscates to the general player base how much money you're actually spending. And I feel like most people, if they actually looked at their bank statement, like at the end of each month, and saw how much money they were putting into some of these video games, it might actually be an eye-opener. Like, all of these conversion tactics have been literally crafted by people who are paid big bucks to figure out the psychology of how to extract money, not just from a whale, but now from the average person. If you don't know how much money you're really spending on something, drips and drabs here, you may not really pay attention to. But once you really actually, and that's why I say, once you look at your bank statement, right, where the money is actually coming out of, it might blow your mind with how much you're actually spending on loot boxes in video games. You may actually have a gambling problem that video games are taking a serious advantage of. There's a lot of regulations in the casino industry, and those regulations could be very helpful for, again, games that actually have slot machines and gambling mechanics in them. But because these are video games, the government doesn't take them the same way, even though I feel the psychology being tapped into is not far off from something you'd find in Vegas or Macau. So if a player attempts to open a loot box but does not have enough Wish tokens, the game prompts the player to exchange Primogems for Wish tokens. If the player has fewer than 160, the amount needed to exchange for a single Wish token, the game then prompts you to top up, or just keep spending more money. And sometimes you might notice that as you're buying packages, sometimes they'll conveniently price something at like, let's say 100 gems, but they'll only have a package for like 150 or like 50 gems. So you have to inadvertently spend more money than you really should to get that 100 package, right? You have to buy 50 more points than you really need. So it becomes this weird situation. It's not just Genshin that does that. It's obviously every other game that does it. Siege does this too with like elite skins. You have to buy a slightly more expensive pack than what the skin is worth just to actually buy that skin. It's insanity. So even SSSniperWolf jumps into this. She's also a part of a lawsuit, surprisingly. Hoyoverse paid influencer SniperWolf more than $100,000 to record 2 videos promoted Bro! 6 racks to... Hoyoverse provided SSSniperWolf with written instructions directing her to open loot boxes for the chance to obtain characters featured on the event banner and to convey that pulling for new characters is exciting and fun. Remember, SSSniperWolf's audience is literally younger than an embryo. So she is literally promoting a slot machine to fucking children. Okay, that is insane. She is promoting the slot machine. She's like, hey kids, it's exciting and fun. Hoyoverse also instructed SSSniperWolf to tout at a boosted rate to obtain a 5-star hero, Zhongli, featured on their event banner. So anyways, she releases this video. It features a segment in which the influencer opens 12 loot boxes in a row, conveying enthusiasm and excitement as she's been instructed, and won the featured 5-star hero. She remarked, we're getting way too lucky tonight. Are you really? Are you getting way too lucky? Are you? In reality, SniperWolf's promotional video is misleadingly edited to depict a fake loot box prize win in a way that would have been impossible in a Genshin Impact game. For instance, when a Genshin Impact player opens a loot box containing a 5-star prize, the game displays a golden shooting star animation, but in SniperWolf's video, the supposed 5-star prize win was preceded by a purple shooting star animation. The video also depicted an uninterrupted succession of 12 loot box opening animations when the game allows no more than 10 loot boxes to be opened at a time. So I actually do want to see what they're alleging here, so I'm going to pull up SniperWolf's video here. We're going to get Jamie to pull that clip up and just see what the fuck is going on.
We can get any of the new weapons.
Okay, so we flew the gem. So we've got blues, we've got the purple, and then of course, okay, so this is a straight up, she's got a bow, okay. She's got the thrilling trails, she's got the debate club, she's got magic guide.
I look away for
okay, she's got a 4-star.
She's one of the new characters. Let's see if we can get the other 2.
And then it cuts.
Noelle! Wow, she's really cute. And I'm trying to get some 5 stars. I got Zhongli!
Bro, we did not see the shooting stars lead to that. Ooh, I'm gonna have, dude, I'm actually like, ooh, that's a little sussy wussy there, SniperWolf. Get out of here, bro. And this video is viewed like 2 million times, all right? Like since its upload, like this is exactly what like Hoyoverse is kind of being like hit at with this. It's crazy. Now, again, I feel like all of these things the FTC is bringing up, like it's interesting they actually brought up like a like an actual influencer's video and kind of pinned that onto Hoyoverse, because like at the end of the day, it's like usually when you make a YouTube ad, companies are going to be looking at your YouTube ad and basically approving every single bit of it. Now, look, at the end of all this, I'm glad the FTC is finally looking at actual, like, you know, real cases of children being exposed to gambling. But again, putting your mind at just Genshin Impact and not looking at the entirety of loot boxes is something that is just not enough for me. Like, at the end of the day, if you want to make changes to this, the government has to look at things like loot boxes in a serious manner. I mean, you know, even just looking at games like Counter-Strike Global Offensive or Counter-Strike 2 at this point with like its skin system and the amount of off-site gambling that occurs from there, I think the FTC really needs to look at stuff like this, but just keeping it strictly to games. When you have things like loot boxes, I'm glad they're doing this because they're really hitting at things like dark patterns. So misconstruing how much money you're actually spending, which again, it's not done for no reason. It's not like they intentionally do this to make the game look cooler. It's literally designed in a way so that people who are playing the game don't realize how much money they're actually spending. And when it comes to loot boxes, literally it is no different than a slot machine, okay? Like at least in Vegas, you can cash out your earnings. With things like Genshin Impact, you are just throwing money in for digital goods. And again, when these games are targeted towards children, yes, it's something that any government is going to be looking at and probably adding some bit more scrutiny to it. Now, do I think a $20 million fine is enough? Obviously not. But I think this is a great pathway for people to start raising a dialogue. And at the end of it, I don't think Genshin Impact is the only player that should be looked at. I think it's definitely other people in the industry, EA Games, Rockstar, Activision, tons of players, Ubisoft, tons of players in the space need to have this shit neutered. If it requires government intervention to keep gambling out of video games like this and completely predatory practices, then as much as I don't agree all the time with government overregulation, this might be the only regulation that I kind of understand. But yeah, Genshin Impact, bad day to be them. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.